Hello everyone, I'm DanTheMan, and I said I probably wasn't going to do a review for the DC Universe All-Star Games, but I'm going to be watching it anyway, and Harley Quinn is on hiatus, so what the hell. I was optimistic about this show, but I will say it turned out to be as good, or possibly even better than I expected. I'd watched RPG shows before, most notably from the Twitch channel Hyper RPG, so I have some idea how this show would likely work. And they both improved on some elements compared to most shows like this, but were arguably lacking in others. First off, the good points. The show, despite being an RPG show, was very fast-paced, and the 22 minutes of the first episode went by really fast. So fast I was surprised when it was over, as it did not feel like almost a half hour had passed. The editing clearly took out some of the meandering that inevitably happens when playing an RPG show, so the flow was a lot faster. It also helped that they had a lot of video clips to help give a visual aid of what Sam Witwer, the GM, was describing. It was also a nice touch that most of the clips were clearly from the 80s, or looked like they could have been from the 80s, thus sticking to the era the story was set in. Speaking of the era the show was set in, maybe it was the lighting, but the Batman costume in the background of the set looked a lot like the blue and gray Batman costume from the comics at that time, versus his more modern look now. I don't know what that costume was from, but assuming that was intentional, and I'm not giving him credit for a trick of the light or something like that, it was a very nice touch. The performers or players were also all good. Freddie Prinze Jr. and Xavier Woods seemed to be the most into their characters and having the most fun with the entire thing. And as such, their characters seemed more fleshed out than the other two, even though everyone seemed to get about the same amount of screen time. I think Vanessa Marshall was the weakest of the four. She was not bad at all, she just seemed to be a bit more reserved than the other three players. Maybe it was an acting choice, but she seemed to have less of a handle on her character than the other three. But that might change as the story moves forward. Another thing I really liked about this were all the references to the 80s movies and also to comic books. For example, the setting of the episode itself was very reminiscent of The Breakfast Club, and Dita's boyfriend, the karate champ, and the whole karate fighting scene definitely seemed a little familiar to people who'd seen The Karate Kid. Also, as far as the comic book references, Dean Finger and Principal Kane was an obvious reference to Bob Kane and Bill Finger, the creators of Batman, as well as the high school name, which was Westward High, which is a reference I would only assume to Adam West and Burt Ward, better known as Batman and Robin in the classic 60s Batman TV show. Have a feeling we'll see a lot of those, also have a feeling I missed some, but I thought it was a nice touch to add and added a lot of fun to the show. And with that, I'll give my thoughts on some of the things I was less enthused about with the first episode. The first one, which is a minor one but worth mentioning, the setup before the game started was obviously scripted. The conversation with Freddie Prinze Jr. telling Sam Witwer what game they would be playing did not come off natural at all. It served its purpose, but I was a little baffled at how forced it came off. I mean, these guys are both good actors, they couldn't have made it sound a bit more natural. The scene of Sam explaining the game to the others at the time also came off a bit fake. Especially the part of him asking if anyone had ever played an RPG before, and if anyone played that particular game. If an interview Freddie Prinze Jr. did on DC Daily is any indication, these people have all played RPGs before, and are friends outside the show, so he apparently already knew the answer to that question. They also said none had played the game before, but in that same interview, Freddie Prinze Jr. told the story about playing the game in the 80s with his friends, so he's lying somewhere. Now, to be fair, all of that was done to help explain the game to the audience, and most RPG shows assume you know the game from the get-go, so it served its purpose, and given the number of non-RPG players who'd likely come across this show, that was a good thing to do. But still, that doesn't really change, it didn't come off all that natural. The other place the show fell short is the runtime. As I said, RPGs are a slow and methodical process, so even with the fact this show is clearly edited heavily from the session it was filmed, at 22 minutes, not much truly happened, especially given we got more like 15 minutes of actual gameplay, given the exposition at the beginning and the ending credits. What they had did introduce the characters well enough, and the cliffhanger they gave, such as it was, did leave me wanting more. So they did good with the short time they had, but I really think the show should have been about twice as long, or if nothing else, at least been a full 30 minutes instead of 22 minutes. But, for its few shortcomings, this was still a really fun show. Enthusiastic players who clearly were having a good time, and an interesting story and fast pace, made for an entertaining and possibly not too short first episode. I'm looking forward to the rest of this very short season, and based on what we saw, I'm hoping it does well so we can get more. Freddie Prinze Jr. has said they have a lot of stories after this one they'd like to tell, and while I have no idea how many people are actually watching this, from what I saw on the internet, the initial reaction has been mostly positive. So here's hoping that leads to great things for the rest of the season and for the future of the show. Thanks for watching. I'll be doing new episode reviews after each episode airs, so be sure to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell if you want to see more. And don't forget to like, comment, and share the video. I'm Dan the Man, and I'll see you next time.